This particular footage picture really caused something of a stir, not just in royal circles earlier this week, but around the world. And it all really goes around the fact that apparently the former footballer, alongside his fashionista wife, love that phrase, don't you? Fashion icon, whatever you want to call her, Victoria and David Beckham. Well, apparently he's really angling, of course, to become Sir David Beckham. Now, as I told you recently, the problem with David was that apparently he said some rather unsavoury things which were leaked on a thing called, I think, WikiLeaks or WebbyLeaks or something like that. And then, of course, that got put into the public domain. And some suggest that this really derailed his opportunity to become a Sir much earlier. After all, he'd done a lot for the country, brought a lot of business in and a lot of profile. Then really what was the turnaround was the bonding, of course, of His Majesty the King and the former footballer over their love of beekeeping and natural honey. It's funny how you bond over things like that, isn't it? And then, of course, they became firm friends. Many people are suggesting that because he's still very good friends with Catherine and, of course, William, that he's now become the replacement, many suggest, for William's younger brother, the former royal known as the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry. But here's where it gets interesting. As you know, Harry and Meghan spectacularly fell out with David and Victoria. Big mistake, as I told you at the time. I figured that they should have, really kept ahead of that, because really, when you think about it, I mean, why would they need to leak any particular stories? It just didn't make sense. But somebody inside that camp literally was pushing and pushing and pushing to the point that Harry, then, no doubt in cahoots with Meghan, felt that the friendship had to be terminated. Now things really are going to be served, well, as they often say, cold, like revenge. Let me explain. Morning, good to see you. Thank you so much for your time today. Lovely to have your company. The thing is, when you do think about this, you do have to be careful, as they often say, in circles of business and stuff like that, because it's very, very tricky, in this celebrity world. You never know how things are going to work out. Now, where I find this fascinating is simply this, because there's no proof at all. There's never been any proof that indeed, David Beckham, Victoria, told any newspaper stories about Harry and Meghan. And what would they know anyway? They only met them superficially, and they were always more friends, actually, with William than they were, of course, with Harry and Meghan. They barely knew Meghan. The first time that Meghan got in touch with Victoria was about the possibility of some clothes as an ambassador, that type of stuff, what you and I call freebies, right? But now, all thanks to this massive event, the state visit, of which they were invited to recently, yes, well, now this is going to really take on Harry and Meghan, because you may or may not know, or if you recall, a couple of days ago I told you about Victoria Beckham's brand new deal for Netflix, which is going to be focusing on her as an individual, as a fashionista, how she put a sort of company together, leaving the Spice Girls, that sort of stuff. And this will be a pivotal part of that. She will be interviewed about what it was like, the big event, her first big state banquet, the last to be held at Buckingham Palace for a number of years. It literally is the royal sprinkling stardust that every sort of thing you would want. Because we'd all want to know, let's be honest, we're all going to tune in because we want to kind of know, what are those events like? I'm lucky enough, I cover them, I can tell you I see them. But it is nice for her and him, because obviously it's rather special. But of course, when you think about the lameness of what's coming for Prince Harry's polo show, equally, of course, Meghan Markle's cookery show for Netflix, the boss of Netflix must be now looking and thinking, well, I got these two people at half the price, maybe even less, than Harry and Meghan have cost me. And look what they're giving me. And that truly has to say a major alarm bell, of course, moving forward for Harry and Meghan as to how their deal is going forward, or indeed not. Either way, it's a developing story. When I know more, you'll know more. Neil Sean in a very windy London.